Hey everyone, so at the risk of upsetting some people, today we got a tier list. So I'm going to fill out the tier list, and at the end I'll probably move some units around like within their tiers. So just stick around to the end to see where everybody ends up. So let's jump right into it. First off, we got Phoenix going into SS tier. Definitely want her for your burn team. She has AoE damage, buffs her attack speed, and reduces enemy attack speed, and buffs her rage regeneration and leech when below 35% HP. So next we got about 10 seconds from my sponsor. If you're interested in getting cash back on your purchases that you can then spend in-game, check out the description for my affiliate code video thanks to Aptoid. It'll explain how to use it. So next we got Gemshine going into A tier. She has AoE heals, gives you a stack of harden, and shields all allies. We got Rabis going into F tier. And to cut down the time of this video, I just won't explain anybody in F tier. We got Venok joining Rabis, and Boldatan going in there as well. Petrillion is going to S tier. She applies petrification to enemies, can apply harden, gives the frontline allies a shield and rock shield, which actually can stun enemies. Lavanon up next, and I would have put her in triple S, but if you didn't know, she just got nerfed, and I think she probably deserves to go to SS tier now, probably at the top of SS tier. Like, she's still good, but she's not outstanding like she was before. Anyway, she does more damage based on burn stacks. She can hit super hard still, and it hits through enemies, so it can hit multiple enemies. Her basic attack can also hit multiple enemies, and she also reduces enemy attack speed. Surge Frog going into F tier. Next we got Rocking going into S tier. He takes reduced E damage, can reflect a projectile every 6 seconds, gains harden, has a small AoE that can actually stun, and he has a damage reduction skill that can reflect damage taken. Rortar up next going into A tier. She can gain harden and increases her crit rate and damage and attack while reducing her rage regeneration and attack speed. Tremagon up next, and I'm putting him into triple S tier. He can do extra basic attacks, he gains harden stacks, hits mid-range enemies and reduces their attack speed, attack, and rage regeneration, and buffs himself with rage, damage resist, and shield once per battle. Butterbee going into F tier, same with Solaria. Fungacure is going into A tier. She has an AoE heal that also does heal over time and gives them a shield and damage resist as well. Zapeel going into F tier. Radiant Tail going into S tier, I think. She heavily damages enemy summons, which can help against certain units, like even like Sunwolf. She has some pretty good healing, and she cleanses an ally's debuffs and shields them, but only once per ally. If you're not using her against summons, she'd be A or maybe even F tier. She's a very specific use case unit. Actually, just because of that, I'm gonna put her in A tier. Next, we got Floofy going into S tier. She buffs the team with 15% damage and damage resist, inflicts poison, heals all allies, and increases poison damage taken by allies. Plant Armor, which is a very creative name, going into S tier, probably around the bottom. He reduces damage to himself when enemies lose poison. He can inflict poison. He has a 5-second period where he's just straight immune to E damage, and then he damages enemies when he's attacked. So depending on which kind of team you're going up against, that E damage invincibility can either do really good, or if you're going up against a P damage team, it's gonna do nothing. Flicker Tree going into A tier. He inflicts burns, has a short range heal over time, which also applies when he dies. Bombda going into S tier. Her basic attacks have a good chance to switch to her rage skill. She inflicts poison, heals herself based off of poison stacks on enemies with her rage skill, and receives extra healing, which also buffs her crit chance. Kira, I kind of want to put in triple S tier. I think she's probably good in SS tier though. After her rage skill, she gets a ton of dodge and reduces enemies' attack speed. She poisons, she can buff her damage by 50% and increase attack speed by 500% and lock onto an enemy. And then she applies damage over time on an enemy after hitting them 5 times, which is really easy when she locks onto an enemy with that much attack speed. Really good single target damage dealer for a grass team. Next we got Paniki going into A tier. She revives herself with half HP when dying. She inflicts slow, creates a clone of herself, but it doesn't attack, and damages enemies every 6 seconds. Could have been a lot better. Oh, I didn't mean to put her in S tier, she's in A tier. Next up we have Mimiclown going into S tier. I'm not positive what his surprise skill does, but just based on the fact that he inflicts madness with his passive skill, I'm pretty sure that's what surprise does, is apply madness, because there's no other way for him to apply madness, I don't think. Anyway, he burns, and his madness makes enemies attack anything nearby. Also, you'll take less damage from enemies with madness. Phantomoth, I was gonna put at the top of SS tier, but I feel like I should put a grass unit in triple S. She's really good. She applies poison, stacks damage twice whenever it's applied, applies poison herself, deals damage while giving all enemies 2 stacks of poison and allies lifesteal, and then when she dies she poisons all enemies. A pretty vital part to a grass team, and just detonating that damage over time instantly is friggin' awesome. Chibara the doggo going into A tier. Maybe about the middle. Pretty valuable unit when you first start the game. He inflicts charge. He also has a skill that does good damage while guaranteeing a crit, and he knocks enemies airborne, which is basically like a stun. Flaminator up next going into S tier. Her basic attacks can deal extra damage, she inflicts burns, she also dashes to the enemy backline and knocks the unit airborne, which like we said is a stun. Her passive gives her a free rage skill at the battle start, and she buffs allies every 3 basic attacks with either attack, lifesteal, or making their basic attacks reduce enemy attack speed. Just pretty dang good unit. If you're having trouble in certain fights, like in the tower from like a healer, you can place her appropriately and she'll go right after that healer. Boomerat going into A tier. He grants charge to allies and himself, and he deals extra damage if he has charge. Psychofly is going into not out yet because she's not out yet. And since we already have a banner repeating, like the next unit's gonna be Phoenix again. So I'm assuming all the units in the not out yet tier are gonna be from events, just like the current Sunwolf event. Sparkgar going into A tier. She doesn't do much damage, but she has a skill that bounces between enemies and has a large rage generation buff at the start of the battle. Bonelet going into F tier. Tenrai Ryu going into not out yet. Seraphine going into triple S tier. When her passive triggers, so does her rage skill. She heals with her basic attacks, which is really good. Her skill grants charge and harden stacks and absorbs a good chunk of damage that your allies receive. Her passive restores her rage when allies lose HP and can turn damage received into healing. She's basically a support and a tank in one, kind of. But she's 100% pay to win, as custom shards don't work on her, unfortunately. Thunderkin up next, going into A tier. His basic attacks deal damage based on enemy max HP, which is really good, but it doesn't work on bosses. And he can also trigger chain lightning, which is pretty cool. Stellord going into not out yet. Voltafe up next, going into SS tier. His rage skill triggers his awakening skill, which damages enemies. His basic attack lowers enemy attack speed. Rage skill deals high damage and then cleanses himself. And his passive increases the damage an enemy takes every 7 attacks. Frostbloom in F tier. Posenig going into S tier. Her awakened skill deals damage and stuns. Her basic attacks deal split damage. Rage skill deals split damage as well, and she can dash just like Flaminator does. She would be better if all her damage didn't come from split damage types. That way you could actually focus on increasing her damage, but right now it's a 50-50 which kind of damage she's going to deal, either E damage or P damage. Drillum going into SS tier. He absorbs petrification to stack his defense up like crazy, gives himself harden on basic attacks, rage skill buffs his basic attack, and gives himself a shield. And he gets 5 harden stacks at the start of the battle, and when he hits 15 stacks he gains a 300% shield. Not nearly as good as in the beta it seems, but still pretty decent, or more than decent. He's a good tank, just not quite as good as Tremagon. Dozloth going into F tier. Abyssina going into not out yet. Seraph is in F tier. Lullaby F tier. Flame Owl F tier. Supet going into S tier. She cleanses herself when dealing damage to enemies with Madness. She inflicts poison. Her rage skill damages 3 enemies and inflicts Madness while reducing their attack and defense. And the first time dealing damage, she can inflict Madness, and they'll also take extra damage if they have Madness. Sweet Fox F tier. Unishark going into F tier. Spit Queen going into A tier. Every 12 seconds, her passive will trigger, gives her a shield, a P damage resist, and rage generation, and she inflicts slow and has a short range stun attack for her rage skill. A Quadra going into A tier as well. His basic attacks can trigger his rage skill, which inflicts Soar, which is basically a stun. When Soar is over, when they hit the ground, they damage other enemies and reduce their attack speed. Next up, we have Windeer going into S tier, right there. After hit with his passive 5 times, enemies get stunned for 4 seconds, which is pretty long, and his passive has a 50% chance to trigger when they receive slow. His rage skill is an AoE that reduces enemy attack speed and also inflicts slow. Darkwine is next up, going into SS tier, somewhere near the top, probably right there. I think Voltafe is probably better than Kira, right there. Oh, not quite, like that. Something like that. Like I said, I'll come back at the end after everybody's on the board and probably readjust things a bit. Anyway, she gains a rage generation buff when enemies with madness die. Rage skill deals damage over time while inflicting multiple slow stacks and inflicts slow at the start of the battle. Every time an enemy is slowed, she gains a rage generation buff and applies madness when enemies hit 5 slow stacks. Then she buffs their damage, which is either good or bad, depends where the madness is applied, because madness makes enemies just attack anybody indiscriminately. Flurry is headed to A tier. Her rage skill taunts and applies poison while gaining defense and E damage resist, which triggers her passive, which deals damage and heals her a bit. Probably more towards the bottom there. Rex is in F tier. Embertad is also in F tier. Bless Soul is either top of A or bottom of S. Maybe even better than Plant Armor. I don't know. I'm just gonna put her there. She's really, really good early game because she dashes to the enemy back line and deals damage, just like Flaminator, but then she becomes invincible for 4 seconds. So it's good for sniping out specific enemies and also can actually tank quite a bit just from that invincibility. So if you have any type of healing, she'll be healing up during that time when she's invincible. Pretty decent SR unit. Next we got Spin Flare going into F tier. Not very useful. Next up is Ghost Drake, probably top of A tier. She applies slow, has a summon rage skill that applies slow and prevents the target from moving or gaining rage. And then she gains rage when enemies hit 750 rage. She gains like 150, I think. Kung Fape going into A tier. She applies burn every 12 seconds and can trigger it up to 3 times. Her rage skill sacrifices HP, unfortunately, to dash and deal damage, but that can also trigger up to 3 times in a row. Dravery up next, going into A tier. She reduces enemy rage when dying. She dashes and deals damage along the way, and then she'll transform when she hits 50% HP. She transforms, buffs her attack by 50%, and then heals herself. Probably one of the better A tier units. Anguish heading to A tier. Her basic attacks can deal extra damage. She heals allies just directly behind her though, while buffing their damage resist, and then she heals allies every 3 seconds as well. Pibear up next, going into A tier. He inflicts burns and reduces enemy attack and attack speed when he dies. And then his rage skill knocks enemies airborne, which, like we said before, is a short stun. Rock is going into F tier. And last but not least, we got Sunwolf going into triple S tier, the newest shiny unit. His passive buffs are applied to another MonMate, which is 150% attack speed, 600% damage, 25% crit chance, 40% crit damage, and a 20% lifesteal buff. But they cannot gain rage during this, unfortunately. The skill also summons 2 units that have a 45% of his stats applied to them, and they get the same buff. Oh, and it also deals damage itself. He also buffs his summons and himself with 30% attack and 270% HP regen. So now let me just take a quick look at all the placements and I'll come back. So I didn't change much, as you can probably tell. Let me know what you think of all the placements. And remember, if you're spending in-game, make sure to check out my affiliate code. You'll get basically a cashback on your purchases that you can then spend in-game. And I'll catch you next time. See ya.